I watched Bryce's hand reach across the white tablecloth, his fingers drumming near the champagne flute. The same hand that slid a ring onto my fingers 6 months ago. The same hand I'd held through movies, grocery stores, quiet Sunday mornings. Now those fingers were tapping impatiently, like I was making him wait for something he deserved. "Clara," he said, his voice lower than usual. "There's something we need to discuss about the wedding fund." I smiled, thinking maybe he'd finally agreed to my lakeside ceremony idea. Something simple. Something us. But his face didn't match mine. No warmth. No light. Just that cold, calculated look I'd seen him use on suppliers who tried to negotiate. "I need you to transfer $90,000 into my account," he said, "before we move forward. Otherwise, I can't do this wedding." The restaurant noise faded. The couple laughing at the next table. The soft jazz from the corner speakers. The waiter refilling water glasses. Everything went silent except for those words echoing in my head like a bad recording stuck on repeat. "You can't do what?" I heard myself ask. "The wedding." He said it so casually, like he was discussing paint colors. "I'm expanding my business, taking on some debt. I need your support. You make good money, Clara. You work at a bank, for God's sake. It's not a big deal." My throat tightened. "You're saying if I don't give you $90,000, you'll call off our wedding? Would you stay if someone put a price tag on your love? Tell me in the comments." He leaned back, swirling his wine like this was just another business meeting. "If you can't support your fiancé, how are you supposed to support your husband? This is what partnerships look like, Clara. Real ones." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Something cold spread through my chest. Not anger yet. Something worse. Recognition. Like watching a stranger's face appear where someone you loved used to be. I thought about my father's words at our engagement party, his first real smile since Mom died. "He sees your worth," Dad had said, squeezing my hand. But this wasn't worth. This was a price tag. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and watched Bryce watch me. He thought he was clever. Thought he'd backed me into a corner where love would make me weak, where my feelings would override my common sense. He knew I'd spent weeks planning, telling everyone, daydreaming about walking down an aisle toward him. "How long have you been planning to ask me this?" My voice came out steady.
"Come."
The same tone I used with clients at Sterling and Crest when I reviewed their accounts and found irregularities they hoped I wouldn't notice. He blinked.
"What?"
"The timing. The restaurant. The same place you proposed. You chose this moment specifically, didn't you? Figured I'd be too sentimental to say no." His jaw tightened. "Don't make this dramatic, Clara. It's a simple request between two people who love each other. But love doesn't have terms and conditions. Love doesn't come with withdrawal slips and ultimatums. Love doesn't look at you across a table and threaten to walk away unless you pay up." I set down my glass and met his eyes. Really looked at them. How had I never noticed how empty they were? Like looking at a beautiful house and realizing nobody actually lives there. "Okay," I said softly. His shoulders relaxed. That snake smile spread across his face. "Thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand. This is why we're perfect together. You're reasonable. Practical. I'll take care of it," I added, signing the check our waiter had quietly placed at my elbow. Because of course Bryce hadn't reached for it. He never did anymore. We walked to our cars in silence. He kissed my cheek, distracted already, probably calculating what he'd spend my money on first. I watched his taillights disappear into traffic, then sat in my car for 10 minutes.
Just sat there.
Breathing. Thinking. Feeling my heart crack and harden at the same time. Charlie was waiting when I got home, tail wagging, completely unaware that my entire future had just rearranged itself. I sank onto the floor next to him, let him rest his big golden head on my knee, and whispered the words that would change everything. We're going to end this, but not his way. 10 months earlier, I was standing in a hotel ballroom that smelled like expensive perfume and desperation. A corporate networking event. The kind where everyone pretends their small talk matters while secretly scanning name tags for anyone useful. I wasn't looking for useful. I was looking for the exit. My coworker Rachel had dragged me there, insisting I needed to put myself out there after my last relationship ended badly. The guy before Bryce had been safe, boring, the kind of man who'd plan our entire lives on a spreadsheet. When he proposed, I'd said no. Rachel said I was too picky. Then Bryce walked in. He didn't just enter a room. He owned it. Tall, broad shoulders, the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person worth noticing. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, and he moved through the crowd like he knew exactly where he belonged. Everywhere. "Who's that?" Rachel whispered, nudging me hard enough to spill my wine. "Trouble," I said, but I couldn't look away. He caught me staring. Held my gaze for 3 seconds too long. Then he walked straight toward us, ignoring at least 5 other people trying to intercept him. "Bryce Donovan," he said, extending his hand. "And you look like someone who'd rather be anywhere else." I laughed before I could stop myself. "Clara Jennings. And you're right. Then let's make this interesting." He gestured toward the balcony. "Tell me something real. Not the corporate script everyone rehearses in the bathroom mirror." We talked for 2 hours. He told me about his construction company, how he'd built it from nothing after his father told him he'd never amount to anything. I told him about losing my mother, how I'd thrown myself into work because numbers made sense when people didn't. He listened like my words mattered. Like I mattered. When he asked for my number, I gave it to him. When he texted me the next morning, I answered. When he showed up at my office that Friday with coffee and those eyes that made promises, I believed him. Have you ever met someone who felt like coming home?
Drop a comment if you know that feeling.
The first 3 months were perfect. Movie nights where he actually watched the film instead of scrolling his phone. Weekend trips to vineyards where he'd hold my hand and talk about our future like it was already written. He met Charlie and spent an hour throwing tennis balls, laughing when my dog refused to bring them back. "You're different," he told me one night, tracing circles on my palm. "Every other woman I've dated wanted me to be someone I'm not. You just let me breathe." I kissed him, thinking I'd finally found my person. The one who'd stay. But there were moments. Small ones. Easy to ignore when you're falling. Like when we'd split a dinner check and he'd joke, "Must be nice having that bank money." Or when he'd mention his ex and say, "She never understood that success costs something." Or when I wore jeans to his business dinner and he'd suggested I dress the part next time. I laughed them off. Told myself he was ambitious, not controlling. That his comments came from insecurity, not malice. Rachel warned me once. We were having lunch, and I'd mentioned Bryce wanted me to co-sign a business loan. "Don't," she said flatly. "I've seen this before. Charming guy, big dreams, needs just a little help. Then a little more. Then you're drowning and he's sailing away on your money." "It's not like that," I'd insisted. "He's building something real." She'd given me that look. The one that said she knew I was lying to myself but loved me too much to push. 6 months in, Bryce proposed. He took me back to that hotel, rented the same ballroom where we'd met, filled it with flowers and fairy lights and 200 people I barely knew. He got down on one knee in front of everyone, and I couldn't say no. Not with cameras flashing. Not with strangers applauding. Not with his eyes looking up at me like I was his entire world. So I said yes. My father cried when I told him. Actually cried. He pulled me into a hug and whispered, "Your mother would have loved him. He sees your worth, Clara. Don't let this one go." Those words haunted me later. Because what if the worth Dad saw wasn't about love? What if Bryce had calculated my value differently, added up my salary, my savings, my access, and decided I was worth the investment of fake affection? But that night, I pushed the doubt away. Told myself I was just scared. That good things were allowed to happen to me. The ring felt heavy on my finger. Beautiful, but heavy. 3 weeks after the engagement, we were at his apartment when his phone rang. He stepped onto the balcony to answer, his voice dropping low. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but his sliding door didn't close all the way. "No," She doesn't know about that account, he said quietly. Keep it separate. I'll handle the transfer after the wedding. My stomach dropped. I told myself it was business, that I was being paranoid, that love meant trusting, not questioning. But as he came back inside, smiling like nothing had happened, I caught myself wondering for the first time if Bryce Donovan was the man he pretended to be, or just really good at pretending. He kissed my forehead and said, "You deserve a man who can show you off, Clara. Someone who makes people look twice." And I smiled back, ignoring the feeling that I'd just become someone's trophy instead of someone's partner. The engagement high lasted exactly 2 weeks. Then wedding planning started, and Bryce's mask began to slip. We sat in my living room with bridal magazines scattered across the coffee table. I'd marked pages, showing simple ceremonies, outdoor settings, strings of lights, wooden chairs, the kind of wedding where you remembered the vows, not the venue. "This one," I said, pointing to a lakeside ceremony. "My parents used to take me here every summer. It's perfect." Bryce barely glanced at it. "We're not doing a backyard barbecue wedding, Clara." The way he said my name, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. "It's not a barbecue. It's meaningful. It's cheap." He flipped to a different magazine, one he'd brought. Glossy pages showing ballrooms with crystal chandeliers and ice sculptures. "This is what people expect. We're not college kids getting married at the courthouse." I never said courthouse. I just want something us. This is us. He tapped a photo of a venue that probably cost more than my car. "I'm building a reputation, Clara. People need to see that I've made it. That we've made it." There was that word again.
We.
Except it never felt like we. It felt like him, and I was just supposed to fund it. Do you think weddings should be about love or about showing off? Let me know what you think. Over the next month, every conversation became a negotiation. He wanted a designer tuxedo from Italy. I suggested renting. He wanted a 7-tier cake from a celebrity baker. I mentioned the local bakery made incredible desserts. He wanted 200 guests. I knew maybe 50 people I'd actually want there. "You're being difficult," he said one night, slamming his laptop shut. "Every bride dreams of a big wedding. What's wrong with you?" "Nothing's wrong with me for wanting something intimate." "Intimate means invisible, Clara. Is that what you want? For nobody to remember our wedding?" I bit back the response that our wedding should matter to us, not strangers on Instagram. But Bryce had already moved on, scrolling through videographer portfolios. This guy shot 3 celebrity weddings. 15,000 for the day. 15,000? For a video? For a memory. He gave me that look. The disappointed one. "You make good money. Stop acting like we're broke." My coworkers started noticing I wasn't as excited as I should be. Rachel pulled me aside during lunch one Tuesday. "You okay? You seem stressed. Wedding planning is just overwhelming." "Clara." She set down her fork. "You should be glowing right now. Instead, you look like you're planning a funeral." I forced a laugh. "It's fine. Bryce just has bigger ideas than I do. Or he has expensive ideas and your wallet." She squeezed my hand. "I love you. So I'm going to say this once. If it doesn't feel right, it's okay to walk away." I'm not walking away from my wedding. I didn't say wedding. I said if it doesn't feel right. That conversation stuck with me. Played on repeat during the silent car rides home. During dinners where Bryce spent more time on his phone than talking to me. During nights when he'd kiss me goodnight and I'd feel nothing but obligation. Then came the venue deposit. Bryce had picked a 5-star resort 2 hours away. The kind of place with white columns and manicured gardens and staff who called you sir and madam. The initial deposit was $8,000. "I'll cover half," I said. "Half." He looked at me like I'd suggested we serve fast food at the reception. "Clara, you're the one with a stable job. My business has cash flow issues right now. Then maybe we should wait. Save up together." His jaw tightened. "Or maybe my future wife could support me instead of questioning every decision I make." Future wife. He used it like a weapon. Like once I signed that marriage license, I'd owe him everything. I paid the full deposit. Told myself it was an investment in our future. That partnerships meant sometimes carrying more weight. But the weight kept getting heavier. Flowers. Imported from Ecuador, $3,000. Bryce insisted. Invitations. Custom calligraphy on handmade paper, $1,200. Bryce insisted. Photographer. Award-winning. Requires full-day rate plus travel, $6,000. Bryce insisted. Every time I hesitated, he'd sigh like I was the unreasonable one. You only get married once, Clara. Unless you want people talking about how cheap we are. My savings account started looking thinner. I'd worked 10 years to build that cushion, and it was disappearing into a wedding that felt more like his showcase than our celebration. One evening, I was updating the budget spreadsheet when my phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Clara Jennings? Yes. This is Michelle Torres. I think we need to talk about Bryce Donovan. My blood went cold. Who is this? Someone who was engaged to him 3 years ago. Someone who learned the hard way what he's really after. She told me things that made my apartment feel smaller. Another woman, another engagement, another pattern of expensive demands. When she couldn't keep funding his lifestyle, he disappeared. No explanation. Just gone. Check his accounts, Michelle said. Trust me, he's not who he pretends to be. I thanked her and hung up, hands shaking.
Part of me wanted to ignore it.
Dismiss it as a bitter ex trying to sabotage my happiness. But the other part, the part that audited financial records for a living, knew patterns when she saw them. That night, Bryce came over with takeout and apologies for being distant. He kissed my neck and said all the right things. Told me he loved me. That I was his everything. And I smiled and nodded and started planning something he'd never see coming. Because 3 days later, I'd catch him on the phone again, whispering about accounts and timelines and transfers that needed to happen before she gets suspicious. The phone call happened on a Thursday. I'd left work early with a headache, just wanted to get home, take something for the pain, and maybe convince Bryce to have a quiet night in. His car was already in my driveway when I pulled up. Unusual. He had his own place and usually texted before coming over. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door, keys already out. That's when I heard his voice through the window I'd left cracked that morning. No, I told you. Keep it in her mother's maiden name for now.
Pause.
Because she works at the bank, genius. She sees my accounts. This stays separate until after we're married. I froze on my own doorstep. The timeline's tight. Weddings in 6 weeks. Once we're legally married, everything becomes joint property. Then we move it. His laugh was cold, unfamiliar. She's so focused on picking napkin colors, she has no idea. My headache disappeared, replaced by something sharp and clarifying. I waited until I heard him move to the other side of the apartment, then quietly unlocked the door and walked in like I'd just arrived. Hey, babe. I called out, normal voice, normal tone. He appeared from the bedroom, phone already pocketed, smile already in place. Hey. Didn't expect you this early. Slow day. Thought we could do dinner? Perfect. I'm starving. We ordered pizza. Watched a show. He held my hand on the couch. Every touch felt like a transaction now, and I couldn't unsee it. After he left that night, I sat with Charlie and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Bryce. I wasn't going to cry or beg for truth. I was going to do what I did best. Investigate. Ever caught someone in a lie and had to pretend everything was normal? Comment below. The next morning at work, I walked into my office like any other day. Made coffee. Checked emails. Then I opened our internal system and pulled up the compliance protocols. Sterling and Crest had strict policies about reviewing accounts connected to employees. But those same policies allowed authorized personnel to flag suspicious activity. And as a senior banking consultant, I was authorized. I started with Bryce's primary checking account, the one he'd moved to my bank 6 months into our relationship, saying he wanted to consolidate under my professional supervision. At the time, I'd thought it was sweet. Now I saw it differently. Regular deposits from his business. Normal. Transfers out for expenses. Normal. Then I noticed a pattern. Every month, Exactly $3,000 moved to an account ending in 4739. I pulled up 4739. Listed under Patricia Donovan. His mother. Except Patricia Donovan had been dead for 7 years. Bryce told me about losing her to cancer, how it shaped him, made him tougher. I'd held him through those stories. The account was active. Very active. Money flowing in from Bryce's business account, then out to offshore routing numbers I couldn't fully trace, without escalating flags. My stomach turned. This wasn't business cash flow. This was laundering. Hiding assets. Building a nest egg in a dead woman's name where I'd never think to look. I dug deeper. Found 2 more accounts. One under his business LLC, Standard. Another under a holding company I'd never heard him mention. That one had $70,000 sitting idle. $70,000. While he'd convinced me to drain my savings for wedding deposits. Then I found the real nightmare. Transferred emails attached to his business account. Correspondence with his business partner about dissolving assets before the marriage and protecting investments from joint property laws. They were planning to hide money from me, make it look like the business was struggling while they stockpiled cash I'd never access. But it got worse. I ran his name through our fraud database. Standard background protocol we used for high-risk accounts. 3 results popped up. All women. All reported financial irregularities connected to Bryce Donovan. One had filed a police report that went nowhere due to lack of evidence. Another had sued him in civil court and settled. Pattern recognition is a beautiful thing when you're trained in it. 3 women. 3 engagements. 3 financial disasters. I was number 4. Rachel appeared in my doorway around noon. Hey, you coming to lunch? Not today. Busy. She stepped inside, closed the door. Clara, you look like you've seen a ghost.
Worse.
I've seen the truth. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face shifting from shock to fury. We're taking this to your boss, she said finally.
Not yet.
I need to do this right. If I rush this, he'll know I'm onto him. What are you planning? I looked at my computer screen, at all those accounts and transfers and hidden money. At the evidence of a man who'd built his entire relationship with me around access to my financial life. I'm planning to freeze him out completely. But I need him to make one more move first. One big enough that the bank has no choice but to investigate. Rachel's eyes widened. You're setting a trap. I'm giving him exactly what he asked for. He wants $90,000? I'm going to make sure he never touches a cent of it. She left me alone after that. I worked through lunch through the afternoon building my case file. Every suspicious transfer. Every hidden account. Every piece of evidence that showed Bryce Donovan wasn't a struggling businessman needing help from his loving fiancé. He was a con artist. And I was his mark. At 5 o'clock, my desk phone rang.
Bryce.
Hey babe, still on for dinner tonight? I kept my voice light. Actually, can we do tomorrow? I'm exhausted.
Sure.
Love you. Love you too. The words tasted like poison, but I said them anyway. Because he could know.
Not yet.
Not until I'd positioned every piece exactly where it needed to be. That night, I barely slept. Charlie sensed something was wrong and stayed pressed against me, his warmth the only real thing in my world. Tomorrow, I'd call Bryce. Tomorrow, I'd tell him I was ready to discuss the money transfer. Tomorrow, I'd give him exactly enough rope to hang himself with. And this time, I'd be the one holding the other end. The restaurant was his idea. Full circle, he'd said. Back to where it all started. Where he'd proposed under fairy lights while 200 strangers applauded. Now we sat in that same corner booth, champagne he'd ordered sweating in the ice bucket, and I knew this was the moment everything would either break or crystallize into the revenge I'd been carefully constructing. So, Bryce started, swirling his wine like we were discussing vacation plans. Have you thought more about what we talked about? I played dumb. The centerpieces? The money, Clara. His smile tightened. The $90,000. There it was. The real proposal. The one that mattered more than the ring. I have thought about it, I said slowly. His posture relaxed. He thought he'd won. And I need to understand something first. I leaned forward. Why exactly 90,000? Why that specific amount? I told you. Business expansion. There's a property deal closing, and I need liquid capital. But your business partner handles acquisitions.
You told me that.
This is separate. A personal investment opportunity. In your mother's name? The color drained from his face. Just for a second, just enough for me to see I'd hit target. What are you talking about? Patricia Donovan. The account you've been transferring money to every month. The one you think I don't know about. He recovered quickly. Too quickly. That's a memorial fund. For charity. In her name. Really? Because memorial funds don't usually have offshore routing transfers. What would you do if you caught your partner in a financial lie this big? Tell me in the comments. The booth suddenly felt smaller. Bryce set down his wine glass carefully, like he was buying time to recalculate. You've been spying on my accounts? I've been doing my job. Reviewing suspicious activity. It's literally what I'm paid to do. I'm your fiancé, not a client. Then maybe you shouldn't have moved your accounts to my bank specifically to gain access to my professional oversight. I kept my voice steady.
Come.
Or did you think I was too stupid to notice? His jaw clenched. The charm evaporated, replaced by something uglier. You don't understand business, Clara. Sometimes you have to move money around. It's complicated. I understand fraud. I understand asset hiding. I understand you've done this before. Done what before? Michelle Torres. Ring any bells? How about Sarah Chen? Or Katie Bradford? Each name landed like a punch. His face shifted through emotions too fast to track.
Surprise.
Anger. Calculation. Those relationships ended badly. Women talk when they're bitter. Women talk when they've been scammed. I pulled out my phone. Opened the folder I'd prepared. You asked 3 women to marry you. All of them worked in finance or had family money. All of them reported financial irregularities after your relationships ended. And now you're asking me for $90,000. That's different.
How?
Because I actually love you. The words echoed too loud in the quiet restaurant. A couple at the next table glanced over. Bryce lowered his voice, leaning closer. Clara, listen to me. Whatever you think you found, you're misunderstanding. Yes, I've made mistakes in past relationships. Yes, I'm not perfect with money management. But I'm trying to build something here. We're trying to build something.
No.
You're trying to build something using my money. There's a difference. I need this opportunity. This deal could set us up for life. Or it could disappear into offshore accounts I'll never see again. His hand shot across the table, grabbing mine. Not gentle. Urgent. If you can't support me now, how are you going to support me as a wife? Marriages are partnerships, Clara. Sometimes one person carries more weight. And it's always going to be me carrying it, isn't it? He didn't answer. Just squeezed my hand tighter. I pulled away. I'm not giving you $90,000, Bryce. His eyes went hard. Cold. All pretense finally dropped. Then we're done. I can't marry someone who doesn't believe in me. You're calling off the wedding because I won't fund your fraud scheme? I'm calling off the wedding because you don't trust me. Because you went behind my back, violated my privacy, and decided I'm some kind of criminal. You are some kind of criminal. He stood up, threw cash on the table even though he hadn't touched his food. You know what your problem is? You think being smart makes you better than everyone. But you're going to die alone in that house with your dog because you can't let anyone in. The insult was supposed to hurt. Instead, it clarified everything. Better alone than with someone who sees me as an ATM. You'll regret this, Clara. I really won't. He stormed out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, finishing my water, letting my hands stop shaking. The waiter came by, concerned. Are you all right, miss? I am now. I drove home slowly, windows down, letting the night air clear the last 2 years from my system. Charlie met me at the door, tail wagging. We're going to end this, I whispered into his fur. But not his way. Because Bryce made one critical mistake. He assumed when I said I wouldn't give him the money, that I'd just walk away quietly. That I'd lick my wounds and move on. He forgot. who he was dealing with. I didn't just work at a bank. I was the senior consultant who'd uncovered 3 major fraud cases in the last 5 years. I was the woman who'd built her career on pattern recognition and risk assessment. And I'd just spent 2 weeks building an airtight case against him. Monday morning, I'd walk into my boss's office. I'd present everything I'd found. I'd authorize a full compliance audit under my division's authority. And I'd watch Bryce's carefully constructed house of cards collapse. Monday morning tasted like cold revenge and hot coffee. I walked into Sterling and Crest at 7:30, an hour before most of the office arrived. My heels clicked against marble floors that had witnessed 10 years of my careful work, my steady climb, my reputation for being thorough and fair. Today, I'd use every bit of that reputation. My boss, Martin Carey, was already in his office. He lived for early mornings and late nights, the kind of executive who treated the bank like his firstborn child, which made him protective, intensely protective. I knocked twice. Clara. Early start. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. I need to flag an account for immediate compliance review. His eyebrows lifted. Martin had been doing this for 30 years. He could smell urgency, like sharks smell blood. What kind of account? Personal connection. My fiancé. I kept my voice level. Professional. I've identified multiple irregularities that suggest intentional asset concealment and possible fraud. Martin set down his pen. Your fiancé has accounts here? He moved them 6 months ago. Said he wanted my professional oversight. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I ran a standard background protocol Friday and found patterns consistent with financial exploitation. I slid the folder across his desk. Everything I'd compiled. Account transfers. Offshore routing numbers. The deceased mother's account still actively receiving deposits. Correspondence about hiding assets before marriage. The civil suits from previous relationships. Martin read in silence. I watched his expression shift from curiosity to concern to cold fury. How long have you known about this? 4 days. I wanted to be absolutely certain before escalating. And your relationship status? Ended Saturday night. He demanded $90,000 or he'd call off the wedding. I refused. He left. Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting someone you loved? Drop a comment. Martin closed the folder, leaned back in his leather chair. You understand what happens next? Once we initiate a formal investigation, there's no stopping it. If he's guilty, he faces criminal charges. If he's somehow innocent, and this is a misunderstanding, your professional judgment gets questioned. I understand. And I'm certain. He studied me for a long moment. You've never brought me a bad case, Clara. Your instincts are usually sharper than our algorithms. If you're saying this is fraud, I believe you. Relief flooded through me, but I kept it off my face. I'll authorize the compliance audit immediately. Full forensic review of all connected accounts. We'll freeze assets pending investigation per federal protocol. He picked up his phone. And Clara? I'm sorry you're going through this. Don't be. I'm just glad I found out before I became his wife. By 9 o'clock, the wheels were in motion. The compliance team had flagged Bryce's accounts. Asset freeze notifications were being processed. His access would be cut by noon. I went back to my office and did something I'd been avoiding. I opened my personal banking app and looked at my savings account. The one I'd spent a decade building. The one that should have had $42,000. It had $18,000. $24,000 gone in 6 months. Wedding deposits. His emergencies. That time his truck needed repairs. The business loan I co-signed. The investment opportunity that was supposedly time-sensitive. All of it was gone, and I'd never see it again. Rachel appeared in my doorway, 2 coffees in hand. You did it? I did it. How do you feel? Like I just stepped off a cliff and haven't hit the ground yet. She sat across from me, sliding the coffee over. What happens now? Now we wait. The investigation takes time. They'll review everything, trace all the transfers, contact previous victims. If they find what I found, he gets charged. And if he comes after you, he won't.
He's too smart for that.
He'll know immediately that I'm the one who triggered this. Coming after me just adds evidence. But I was wrong. At 2:15 that afternoon, my cell phone rang.
Bryce.
I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. By the fifth call, I answered. What? What did you do? His voice was barely controlled rage. My accounts are frozen. Every single one. My business partner is calling me screaming about our operating funds being locked. What the hell did you do, Clara? I filed a compliance report. Standard procedure for suspicious activity. Suspicious? You mean vindictive. You're destroying my life because I broke up with you. You broke up with me because I wouldn't fund your fraud scheme. There's a difference. This is illegal. You can't just freeze someone's accounts because you're angry. Actually, as a senior banking consultant, I can flag irregularities. The compliance team made the decision to freeze based on evidence. Federal banking regulations, Bryce. Look them up. The line went silent for 3 seconds. Then, you're going to regret this. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You think you're untouchable because you work at a bank? I know people, Clara. People who handle problems. My blood went cold, but my voice stayed steady. I'm recording this call. Please keep talking. He hung up. I immediately forwarded the recording to Martin and filed a report with building security. Then I called the police non-emergency line and documented the threat. Paper trail. Everything needed a paper trail. Rachel insisted on walking me to my car that evening. Stay at my place tonight. I'm not letting him scare me out of my own home. Clara. I have cameras. I have neighbors. I have a very large dog.
I'll be fine.
But I kept my phone close all night. And when headlights swept across my bedroom window at 11:30, I was already awake, already watching through the security app. Bryce's truck pulled into my driveway. He sat there for 5 minutes just sitting, engine running. Then he got out and walked to my front door. The pounding started. Fists against wood. Clara, open this door. We need to talk. Charlie started barking. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, kept my finger over the call button. I know you're in there. You can't hide from this. You can't destroy someone's life and just walk away. My neighbor's porch light flicked on. Then another. Bryce noticed, seemed to realize he had an audience. This isn't over, he shouted at my door. You hear me? This isn't over. He stormed back to his truck, tires squealing as he peeled out of my neighborhood. I called the police anyway. Filed a report. Got an incident number. Added it to the growing pile of evidence that Bryce Donovan wasn't a heartbroken fiancé. He was a dangerous man who'd finally been caught. And I'd be the one to make sure he never did this to anyone else again. Wednesday morning, the bank's fraud division called me in for a formal interview. Standard protocol. When an employee flags an account connected to their personal life, they verify there's no conflict of interest, no vendetta disguised as compliance. I walked into the conference room where 3 investigators sat with folders and recording equipment. I'd worked with 2 of them before. They knew my reputation. Ms. Jennings, thank you for your cooperation, the lead investigator said. Her name was Patricia Moore, 15 years in financial crimes. We need to establish a timeline of your relationship with Bryce Donovan and how you came to flag his accounts. I told them everything. The networking event, the courtship, the proposal, the escalating financial demands, the phone call I'd overheard, Michelle Torres reaching out, my discovery of the hidden accounts and previous victims. Patricia took notes without expression. And when did you decide to file the compliance report? After I confirmed the pattern matched our fraud indicators. 3 previous relationships ending in financial disputes. Money being moved to accounts under deceased relatives' names. Offshore transfers with no legitimate business purpose. Some might argue you had personal motivation to damage Mr. Donovan's finances.
Some might.
But the evidence speaks for itself. If I'm wrong, the investigation will show that. If I'm right, you'll find exactly what I found. They interviewed me for 2 hours. Every question designed to poke holes in my story, find bias, locate the anger that might have clouded my judgment. They found nothing. Because I'd been careful. methodical. Everything I'd done was by the book. Do you think she was right to use her position this way? Let me know your thoughts below. By Friday, the investigation had expanded. Federal banking investigators joined the case. They traced Bryce's offshore accounts to 3 different countries, found correspondence with his business partner about premarital asset protection strategies, contacted his previous fiancés, all of whom confirmed similar patterns. Martin called me into his office that afternoon. The fraud division is recommending criminal charges. Federal charges, Clara. Wire fraud, money laundering, intent to defraud. He's looking at serious prison time, if convicted. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. There's something else, Martin continued. His business partner is cooperating, giving testimony in exchange for immunity. Apparently, Bryce has been running this scheme for 6 years. You're the 4th woman he's targeted, but there were others before that who never reported it. How many others? They're still counting. The number hit me wrong. All those women who'd believed his smile, his promises, his talk of partnership and forever. All of them left with empty accounts and broken trust. The DA wants to meet with you. Get your statement on record for the prosecution. When? Next week. They're building the case now. With your evidence and the testimony from his partner, they're confident about conviction. I nodded, feeling the weight of what I'd set in motion. This wasn't just freezing an account anymore. This was destroying a man's entire life. But then I remembered. He tried to destroy mine first. That evening, Bryce called again. Different number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Clara.
His voice was different now. Softer.
Desperate.
Please.
We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. They're saying I could go to prison. For years. Over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. It's fraud. I made mistakes. I moved money poorly. But I never meant to hurt you. You have to know that. The manipulation was impressive. Even now, cornered and caught, he was trying to spin it. You asked me for $90,000 with an ultimatum. You hid assets. You planned to divorce me and take everything after we were married. That's not mistakes, Bryce. That's premeditation. I loved you.
No.
You loved my bank account. There's a difference. Silence on the line. Then, if you drop the charges, I'll disappear. You'll never hear from me again. I didn't file charges. The bank did. The federal investigators did. This is out of my hands now. You started this. And there it was. The real voice. The angry one that blamed everyone else for his choices. I ended something that should have never started. That's all. You'll pay for this, Clara. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But karma comes around. It already did. For you. I hung up and blocked the number. Rachel came over that night with wine and Thai food. We sat on my couch while Charlie sprawled across both our laps. How are you really doing? She asked. I keep waiting to feel guilty. Like I ruined someone's life unfairly. But every time I start to feel bad, I remember he tried to ruin mine first. He did ruin other women's lives. You stopped him from doing it again. I know. Logically, I know. But it's still weird. 6 months ago, I thought I was going to marry this man. Now I'm the reason he's facing federal charges. 6 months ago, he was pretending to be someone he's not. You didn't destroy the real Bryce Donovan. You just exposed him. That night, I dreamed about the wedding that would never happen. Walking down an aisle toward a man whose face kept changing. Every step closer, his smile got colder, his eyes emptier. When I finally reached him, there was nothing there. Just an expensive suit and a hollow space where a person should have been. I woke up at 3 a.m., Charlie's warm weight against my side, and realized I wasn't mourning Bryce. I was mourning the future I'd imagined. The one that was never real, to begin with. And that was okay. Because better a painful truth than a beautiful lie. Monday morning, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Local businessman arrested on federal fraud charges. Bryce's photo stared back at me from the screen. They'd arrested him at 6 a.m. Perp walked him out of his apartment in handcuffs. The comment section was already filling with people I'd never met, saying things like, "I knew something was off about him," and "My cousin dated him once, said he was weird about money." Everyone's an expert after the fact. But buried in the comments, I found one that mattered. "He tried this with me 3 years ago. I'm so glad someone finally stopped him." Michelle Torres, the woman who'd called to warn me. I messaged her privately. "Thank you for reaching out. You saved me." She responded within minutes. "You saved yourself. I just gave you the information. You had the courage to act on it." Courage. Funny word for calculated revenge. But maybe that's what courage was sometimes. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to protect yourself even when love tried to make you weak. The arrest made regional news. Not front page, but enough that people noticed. Enough that my phone wouldn't stop ringing with reporters asking for comments, friends asking if I was okay, distant relatives suddenly concerned about my well-being. I ignored most of them. Gave a single statement through the bank's PR department. "I'm grateful to Sterling and Crest's fraud division for their thorough investigation and commitment to protecting customers." Professional.
Distant.
No emotion. Inside, I was a mess of feelings I couldn't quite name. The DA's office scheduled my deposition for Tuesday. I showed up in a gray suit, minimal makeup, hair pulled back. I looked exactly like what I was, a banking professional doing her civic duty. The prosecutor was a woman named Jennifer Walsh, sharp-eyed and efficient. She walked me through every detail. The timeline, the discovery, the decision to flag the accounts, the threats Bryce had made afterward. "How would you characterize your emotional state when you filed the compliance report?" she asked. "Certain. I'd confirmed a pattern of fraud. I followed protocol." "Were you angry?" "Of course I was angry. Wouldn't you be?" She smiled slightly.
Yes.
"But that's good. It means you're human. The defense will try to paint you as a vindictive ex-fiancé who weaponized her position. We need to establish that your actions were justified and procedurally correct." They were both. After 3 hours of questioning, Jennifer leaned back. "You're a strong witness, Clara. Composed, credible, clear about your motivations. If this goes to trial, you'll do well on the stand." "If? You don't think he'll take a plea?" His lawyer's already reaching out. "Bryce is looking at 15 years if convicted on all counts. He'll probably take a deal for 7 with good behavior." 7 years. I tried to imagine Bryce in prison for 7 years and couldn't picture it. He was too proud, too image-conscious. Prison would break him in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. Good. Was that cruel? Maybe. But he tried to break me first. By Thursday, the fallout had spread beyond legal consequences. Bryce's business partner officially dissolved their company. The clients they'd been working with terminated contracts. His reputation, the thing he'd cared about more than anything, was destroyed. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved back in with his father, the same man he'd claimed drove him to prove himself. The irony was almost poetic. Then the letters started arriving. The first one came to my office, addressed in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside, a single page. "Thank you for your courage. He conned me out of $30,000 2 years ago. I never reported it because I was embarrassed. Seeing him finally face consequences gave me closure I didn't know I needed. You're a hero." It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. More letters followed. Women I'd never met, sharing stories that all sounded horrifyingly familiar.
The charm.
The promises. The financial manipulation disguised as partnership. The disappearing act when the money ran out. One woman wrote, "He told me I was his soulmate while emptying my retirement account. You stopped him from doing this to someone else. Thank you. Do you think exposing someone like this is justice or revenge? I'd love to hear your perspective." Rachel found me crying in my office on Friday afternoon, surrounded by letters from strangers. "What's wrong?" I didn't realize how many people he hurt. "It's not just me. It's dozens of women over years. And nobody stopped him until now. Because you were the first one with the resources and knowledge to do it. That's not luck, Clara. That's you being exactly who you needed to be in that moment." Maybe she was right. Maybe everything, The banking career, the financial expertise, even meeting Bryce, had been leading to this. Stopping a predator who'd perfected his craft over years of practice. My boss Martin called me into his office the following Monday. I expected another meeting about the case, more questions from legal. Instead, he offered me a promotion. Senior Risk Director. Your own team. 40% salary increase. You've proven you have the judgment and integrity we need in leadership. I stared at him. You're promoting me because I flagged my fiancé for fraud? I'm promoting you because you did the right thing when it was hard. Because you chose ethics over emotions. Because you're exactly the kind of leader this bank needs. He slid the offer letter across his desk. Also, you've saved us from potential regulatory nightmares. If you'd married him and he'd continued accessing systems through you, Sterling and Crest could have faced federal sanctions. You protected the institution. The promotion felt surreal. Like I'd stumbled into someone else's success story. But I'd earned it. Through pain and betrayal and the courage to burn down my own life rather than live a lie. I accepted. That night, I called my father for the first time since the engagement ended. I'd been avoiding him, afraid of his disappointment. Dad. Clara. Finally. I've been worried sick. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I need to tell you what happened with Bryce. I explained everything. The demands. The fraud. The investigation. The arrest. Silence on the other end. Then, your mother would be so proud of you. My throat tightened. For what? Choosing the wrong guy. For protecting yourself when it mattered. For being smart and strong and refusing to be anyone's victim. His voice cracked slightly. I told you he saw your worth. I was wrong. He saw your net worth. But you saw through him. That's what matters. We talked for an hour. He told me about Mom, how she'd always said I had a spine made of steel wrapped in silk. How she'd know I'd never let anyone diminish me. I cried after we hung up. Not sad tears. Grateful ones. 2 weeks later, Bryce's lawyer called the DA's office with a plea deal. He'd plead guilty to wire fraud and financial exploitation in exchange for reduced charges. 8 years, eligible for parole in 5. Jennifer Walsh called to ask my opinion. It's your choice ultimately. We can push for trial, try for the full 15. But trials are unpredictable, and this guarantees conviction.
Take the deal.
I don't need maximum punishment. I just need him stopped. The plea hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. I didn't plan to attend. But when the day came, I changed my mind. I walked into that courtroom, wearing the same gray suit I'd worn to the deposition. Sat in the back row, where Bryce wouldn't see me unless he turned around. He looked smaller somehow. Thinner. The confidence that had made him magnetic was gone, replaced by nervous energy and pale skin. When the judge asked if he understood the charges, his voice barely carried. Yes, Your Honor. And how do you plead?
Guilty.
One word. Years of lies condensed into a single syllable. The judge accepted the plea, set sentencing for 6 weeks out, and dismissed the court. Bryce stood, flanked by his lawyer. That's when he turned and saw me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I didn't smile, didn't frown, just looked at him with complete neutrality. He looked away first. Outside, reporters waited. I pushed through them without comment, got in my car, and drove straight to the lake. The same lake where I'd wanted our wedding. Where I'd imagined saying vows under simple string lights, while people who actually loved us watched. I stood at the water's edge and thought about alternate timelines. 3 months passed like water finding its level. The chaos settled into a new normal that felt strange and right simultaneously. I moved into my new office at Sterling and Crest. Corner window. My own assistant. A team of 6 analysts who looked at me like I'd won some impossible war. Maybe I had. My first major project was implementing new protocols for identifying financial predators before they could establish patterns. Bryce had taught me something valuable. Con artists rely on victims being too embarrassed to report. If we could spot the patterns earlier, flag the behavior sooner, we could protect people before the damage became irreversible. The board approved my proposal unanimously. Rachel threw me a promotion party at her apartment. Small gathering. Close friends. People who'd supported me through the worst of it. Speech, someone called out. I raised my glass, awkwardly. I'm not good at speeches. But thank you. For believing me when this got messy. For not judging me for staying too long or leaving too dramatically. For reminding me I deserved better. We toasted.
Laughed.
Nobody mentioned Bryce's name. Later that week, I received an unexpected visitor at work. A woman in her mid-40s, well-dressed, nervous energy. Ms. Jennings? I'm Catherine Price. I was engaged to Bryce Donovan 7 years ago. I gestured for her to sit. How can I help you? I saw the news coverage. About his arrest. About you flagging his fraud. She paused, choosing words carefully. He took $45,000 from me. Told me it was for a business investment. I never saw it again. When I threatened to report him, he said nobody would believe me. That it would look like a bitter ex trying to hurt him. I'm sorry that happened to you. Don't be sorry. I came to say thank you for being brave enough to stop him. For using your position to protect other women. I tried reporting him years ago. The police said it was a civil matter. The bank he used said they couldn't comment on customer accounts. Everyone passed the responsibility until it became my fault for trusting him. Her words hit hard. How many Catherines existed? How many women had been failed by systems designed to protect them? Have you considered filing a civil suit now? With his conviction, you'd have strong grounds. My lawyer suggested it. But honestly, I don't want his money. I just wanted someone to believe me. You gave me that. After she left, I sat at my desk thinking about visibility. Bryce had operated in shadows, relying on shame and silence to protect him. Every woman who spoke up, who refused to disappear quietly, brought him closer to light. I'd just been the one with enough evidence and authority to make it stick. The sentencing hearing arrived on a cold October morning. I debated attending again. Decided I needed to see it through. The courtroom was fuller this time. Several of Bryce's victims had come, wanting closure. His father sat in the front row, looking older than I remembered. Bryce wore an orange jumpsuit. No more expensive suits. No more carefully styled hair. Just a man facing consequences. If you've ever watched someone face justice for hurting you, you know this feeling. Share if you understand. The prosecutor presented the case. Wire fraud. Financial exploitation. A pattern spanning 8 years and at least 12 victims that they could document. Probably more who'd never come forward. Jennifer Walsh spoke directly to the judge. Your Honor, Mr. Donovan systematically targeted women in positions of financial stability, gained their trust through false promises of marriage, and exploited that trust to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars. He showed no remorse until arrested. He represents a continued threat to any woman who crosses his path. Then Bryce's lawyer stood. Tried to paint him as a man who'd made mistakes. Who'd struggled with his father's expectations and made poor choices. Who'd hit rock bottom and deserved a chance at rehabilitation. The judge listened patiently. Then she turned to Bryce. Mr. Donovan, do you have anything to say before sentencing? He stood slowly. Your Honor, I know I've hurt people. I know I made terrible decisions. I was trying to build something and took shortcuts I shouldn't have. I'm sorry to everyone I've disappointed. The apology was technically correct but emotionally hollow. Sorry for getting caught. Sorry for disappointing people. Not sorry for the actual harm. The judge saw through it too. Mr. Donovan, you didn't make mistakes. You executed a calculated pattern of predatory behavior over nearly a decade. You targeted vulnerable women, exploited their emotions, and stole their financial security. This court finds your actions reprehensible and your lack of genuine remorse concerning. She sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. No early release eligibility. When the gavel came down, I felt something release in my chest. Not joy exactly. More like the final exhale after holding your breath too long. Outside, reporters swarmed. This time I stopped. Ms. Jennings, how does it feel to see your ex-fiancé sentenced to prison? It feels like justice for 12 women who deserved better. I hope anyone in a similar situation sees this and knows they have options. that their voices matter, that financial abuse is real abuse and deserves to be taken seriously. The clip ran on local news that evening. My phone exploded with messages. But one stood out. From Michelle Torres. You did it. You actually stopped him. Thank you for finishing what I couldn't. I responded. We all stopped him. Every woman who spoke up, who refused to stay silent, who warned the next person in line. It was never just me. That night, I took Charlie to the lake one more time. The leaves had turned gold and red, making the whole place look painted. I found the spot where I'd imagined having my wedding ceremony and stood there, breathing in cold air that tasted like freedom. Thank you, Bryce, I whispered to the water. You taught me exactly how strong I am. Because here's the truth they don't tell you in fairy tales. Sometimes the prince is a villain. Sometimes happily ever after means walking away. Sometimes love means choosing yourself, even when it breaks your heart. I'd chosen myself, and I'd won. Not just the legal battle or the promotion or the satisfaction of seeing him sentenced. I'd won something bigger. The knowledge that I'd never again let someone's charm blind me to their character. That I'd trust my instincts even when they contradicted my feelings. That my worth wasn't measured by someone else's appraisal. I drove home as the sun set, Charlie's head on my lap, and felt genuinely happy for the first time in months. The next morning, I started my first day as Senior Risk Director. My team gathered in the conference room for introductions. Young analysts, eager to learn, looking at me for guidance. My name is Clara Jennings, I began. I'm here because I refuse to ignore red flags. Because I chose ethics over comfort. Because I believe financial predators can be stopped if we're willing to look for them. One analyst raised her hand. Did you really take down your own fiancé? I didn't take him down. I held up a mirror and made sure everyone saw what was already there. That's what we do here. We find the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. And we protect people before they become victims. They nodded, understanding the assignment. The calendar on my desk showed April 12th, the day that should have been my wedding. 1 year ago, I would have walked down an aisle toward Bryce Donovan, a man who saw me as a financial opportunity. Instead, I sat in my office reviewing fraud detection reports, sipping coffee that didn't taste like regret. My team had saved thousands from financial predators. One case, Jennifer's, hit close to home. Her fiancé wanted her to co-sign a $50,000 loan. We uncovered hidden accounts and a pattern of deceit, one I knew too well. She ended the engagement. When she thanked me, I told her, I just gave you information. You saved yourself. That's what I'd learned. No one can save you but you. I'd acted on that truth once, and though it cost me a relationship, it gave me back myself. Later that day, I opened an email from a stranger. I was engaged to Bryce 9 years ago. He took everything. I saw your interview after his arrest. You gave me closure. I'm getting married now. To someone who loves me for real. Thank you. I saved it in a folder titled Why It Mattered. There were 27 emails there now. Women like me, who'd survived men like Bryce. Proof that justice wasn't about revenge. It was about breaking cycles and replacing shame with truth. That same day, I drove to the lake where I was supposed to marry him. The water was calm. Charlie, my dog, stretched on the blanket beside me. This is where it was supposed to happen, I told him. To a man who wanted my bank account more than my heart. I called my father. I'm at the wedding lake, I said. He asked if I was okay. I am, I told him. Mom would be proud. Not just for protecting myself, but for still believing in love, just smarter now. That night, I had dinner with Rachel, my best friend. We celebrated 1 year since I dodged the biggest bullet of my life. Between laughter and wine, she asked, do you regret any of it? I thought about it.
No.
It taught me that charm isn't character, that love without respect is manipulation, and that I'm strong enough to rebuild from ashes. We toasted to choosing ourselves. For the first time in years, I felt complete. The next morning, sunlight filled my home. My home, paid for by my own work, shared with no one but my loyal dog. No joint accounts. No fragile egos. Just peace. Another message waited in my inbox, a potential victim seeking help recognizing financial manipulation. I set up the meeting. This was my life now, protecting others from what almost destroyed me. Bryce hadn't ruined me. He'd forged me into someone who could stop men like him. When I passed the restaurant where he'd proposed, where he'd once demanded $90,000, I smiled. I had taken care of it, just not how he expected. Later that week, my boss told me the American Banking Association wanted me as a keynote speaker. Topic: When Love Becomes Leverage. My story, the one that began with betrayal, had become a blueprint for prevention. 3 months later, I stood before 3,000 people in Chicago. I told them everything. The red flags I ignored, the manipulation I mistook for love, and how I finally chose myself. When I finished, the crowd rose in applause. Women lined up afterward to thank me, to share their own stories. One mother told me about her daughter, engaged to a man like Bryce. "Can I send her your speech?" she asked. I told her yes, and to remind her daughter that leaving before a wedding is embarrassing for a day, but staying in a bad marriage is painful for a lifetime. That night, alone in my hotel, I laughed with Rachel over video chat until we cried. Later, I saw an email titled from Bryce. Against my better judgment, I opened it. He wrote from prison, admitting everything, that I'd been right, that he'd seen me as an opportunity, that I was smarter and stronger than him. "I respected that," he wrote. "You asked if I ever loved you. I think I loved the version of myself I saw in your eyes. I'm sorry for hurting you." I felt nothing. Not anger. Not forgiveness. Just peace. I deleted it. Closure didn't need a reply. Back home, Charlie greeted me like I'd been gone for years. We walked through the neighborhood, quiet streets, families living simple, honest lives. That night, I treated myself to dinner. A man approached, kind eyes, awkward charm. "Sorry to interrupt," he said. "You have great taste in wine." His name was David. We talked. He asked me for coffee. I warned him. I'm the woman who sent her fiancé to prison. I don't ignore red flags anymore. He smiled. Good thing I'm more of a beige flag. I cry at rom-coms. I laughed, really laughed. "Coffee sounds nice," I said. Maybe I'd see him again. Maybe not. Either way, I'd be fine. Because Bryce hadn't broken me. He prepared me to recognize something real when it arrived. And if it never did, I'd still be whole. Because the greatest love story isn't about finding someone else. It's about never losing yourself again. If Clara's story moved you, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember their worth. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming the person they never deserved. Stay strong, stay smart, and always choose yourself.